Well, man, it's great to meet you, and I love the work that you're doing. And I'm curious, before we get into that, 4 years ago we were trying to figure this pandemic out. How long is it going to last? The ramifications. How did you make it through that time period, and how did it change you?
Well, I had a secret hack that I knew all about weaponized diseases ahead of time. That was part of my military experience, was working with nuke, chem, and bio, bio being the disease side. So we got pretty in-depth training about, how the government responds to these things. And so when they were coming out with like even the initial numbers, I thought it was a joke. I seriously thought like, okay, somebody's screwing with us. And that was my perspective going into it. And then I watched a lot of stuff happen along the way. But I had been very much head down in the sand, not paying attention to the world. So I missed some opportunities with that whole up and down investment wise for sure, as well as in the business because I wasn't prepared for like an external factor to come and hit us. So it was us hunkering down in the Airstream at that point. We were traveling full time and we spent every waking moment working because we had nothing else to do. We were stuck in 200 square feet, and we were in a beautiful place right on the riverside outside of Asheville. But that turned things around for us very quickly, and we continued that trend. Continued like working really, really hard. We weren't doing anything except traveling and working. We didn't have any kids yet, which helped. So that carried us through. And kind of towards the end of that whole cycle, we found Morganton. And so it was a fresh start for us in a lot of different ways coming to Morganton.
So, as the president of Publicity for Good, I want to know. I'm going to put you in front of a bunch of third grade students at career day, and one of the kids says, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" How do you answer that child?
Oh, what I do is I tell people what to do. Uh, that comes in a lot of forms. I'm much more on the operations side of the business. My wife Heather is the publicist, and I can explain that in very simple terms as well. But I organize people primarily, is what I would say at the most basic level. And on the publicist side, it's connecting our clients who are food and beverage companies primarily that you'd find in the grocery store and connecting them to the members of the media that want to tell a story about them.
Okay. So, what did you want to be in the third grade? What was your dream?
Oh man, third grade, I am not sure, but I can tell you 12th. That's about as far back as I can remember maybe. I wanted to be an engineer. And then I went to school for that at UCF. Got through Calc 2, finished that, and was like, I do not want to do this. I don't want to sit and do complex equations. It just, when I found out what that really was, it kind of lost it for me because I was much more on the process side, understanding how things work. Um, and so I also found a passion for business around that same time. And so I switched majors into business management and entrepreneurship. And so I knew I wanted to become an entrepreneur. But towards the opposite end of college, as I was about to graduate, I knew I had the opportunity to serve in the military. And about half the guys and have in my family, and the other half have just been the civilian side. And so I knew I had the full option, but it was something that I wanted to do was to serve. And so I went that direction and spent a little over 7 years in the military.
So, let me ask you this. What were the seeds early on in your life? Take me back to where you were born and raised and the seeds that got into you to want to serve, to help, to be an entrepreneur. How did all of these kind of get planted and grow into who you are today?
Okay. Uh, okay. Trying to go back as far as I can. We started in Jacksonville, Florida. That's where I was born, and we moved when I think I was in third grade. It was halfway through the school year. My dad's company expanded in and added not a franchise office, a remote office for the Carolinas. and like Virginia. And so it's an architectural firm. And so they wanted a little broader scale in who they were serving. So we moved to Carolina, and I was involved in sports, both in Jacksonville and all through growing up. And I think that had a huge influence on me, of wanting to be a part of a team, wanting to achieve great things. And a lot of people say it is be a team player, but I think serving as well. That also came from church and being involved there. But I think serving your teammates, that kind of passion, and it's talked way more about in the military, but I think teamwork and service are very closely related.
So,
Those are good.
oh no, 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 you're good. You're good. Go ahead. I'm sorry. There was a
Uh,
little bit of a lapse, and I didn't know if you were done or yeah. No, you're good.
um, I was lucky to see some pretty inspirational people early in life. Pete of Pete's Soccer Salsa was one of the first, and he had a side business just selling salsa, and I was actually able to participate in that process. I helped him make deliveries to the retail locations, and of course I sold it to all my friends and family. And so that was like my first experience with entrepreneurship, and I still think about it today. And I was good at it. So I sold a lot of salsa for probably like fourth grade kid or something like that. A little bit later on, I had the privilege of being on a championship team and played with Tim Tebow on that team in high school. And so that was a life-changing experience those couple years, finding out what it meant to win and the work that was required going into that, because we worked really hard. Um, I had come from a program in North Carolina. We ended up moving back to Florida when in between my sophomore and junior year of high school, and we worked hard at the North Carolina program, but the exponential level of work that went in that Florida team at Nice, it changed my perspective on what was required to play at the highest level. And so I wish I could say I carried that forward to college, but I didn't. It took until a couple years into college for me to realize I was missing that in my life. And so I wanted to be a part of that again. And that's why I started looking at special operations programs. And I looked at all of them, read a bunch of the books, and wound up going with the Navy, EOD specifically, which is Explosive Ordnance Disposal, where the guys in the bomb suits, driving the robots around. And the Navy specifically also does diving. And so that allows us to integrate with a lot of the other special operations communities.
Wow. So, who's ultimately been a hero for you? The ultimate inspiration in your life?
I was just talking about this with my dad, actually. He retired several years ago, and I was able to give a speech at his retirement and talking about how he had inspired me. And so he is a massive figure in my life that's inspired me. Timmy, of course, was an inspiration, and our coaching staff on that team was incredible. Uh, and then moving forward, I had a couple of business mentors through school. One of my professors had, exited a company, and I was just like, wow, that sounds amazing. Uh, a lot of guys in the military, I can say that. Um, and, some of them aren't here anymore. And that's a very tough reality when your heroes, or at least the people that trained you, uh, aren't there anymore. So, oh, gosh. Um, Now that I'm more in the business world, I exited the military. I had already started getting back into that, and I have some heroes there. Our now friend, I would call him Cole Hatter. He ran Thrive for a long time, and he is an inspiration for me when it comes to purpose driven business and how their family works together in the business, because that's what Heather and I do. So there was great inspiration. And he introduced me to a bunch of people, including Andy Frisella, who I follow now. Uh, Another inspiration for me, because right as I was starting business, I was sitting down with a couple at a table, and I had no idea who they were at that point because I was brand new, like first business event. Uh, and that was Alex and Layla Hormozy. So I've seen what they've done over the past like 5 years or whatever, and that's an inspiration to catch up. So
So, as an athlete, what would be a dream game that you would love to go back in a time machine and see? Where would you love to be to see one game?
I don't have a great memory for some of that stuff. I know I would love to go see Babe Ruth point out his home run.
Yeah,
But those kind of moments, uh, any game where Jordan was playing, I
yeah.
and I know I watched a couple as a kid, but like I don't remember them. And
Yeah.
it would be really cool to go back and see that. Um, I had to laugh at this the other day because I was talking with somebody we had a sales call with, and he was a Florida State guy, and I'm from UCF. And he asked me, "Well, did they rob the championship from you?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I would love to go back and see UCF play in the championship game that year where
Yeah.
they ended up undefeated." So, a made-up sports moment is
Yeah,
what I'm
there you
trying to.
That's awesome. So what is your motivation every day to get up to do the work that you do? You obviously you're in charge, you're an entrepreneur, you're highly driven. What is that gas in your tank? What motivates you every day?
Well, now it's the kids. That's a huge motivator for us because that's not going away. The mission behind what we do, and this absolutely was in the military as well, but the mission behind what we do with purpose-driven brands, and that's who we try to work with on the agency, Publicity for Good, is somebody who's making a positive impact in the world, giving back in some way. The one of the most popular examples is Tom's shoes. They gave a pair of shoes away for every pair of shoes they sold. And now they do a bunch of other stuff because of they were literally hurting the local shoemaking
Yeah.
industries in these countries, which is wild that they were able to give away that many shoes. But there's a lot of examples of this. And it's not just adding, oh, we give this money away. It's actually building it into the core concept of your business of being purpose driven. And a huge part of that for us is working with companies who are specifically giving back. Um, and so that mission makes it so much easier to work hard for our clients. And so that's another part of it.
So what's been one of your favorite client success stories so far?
The first one that was kind of crazy because we started working with Flying Embers, and they massively gained share of voice, meaning compared to their competitors, they were getting way more coverage, getting their name out there way more. And so we saw them turn around from like a 4% to 70 or something like that as far as share of voice. And then shortly thereafter, I start seeing across the country because we were around North Carolina area at this point. And they are a Southern California company. I start seeing their stuff in stores in North Carolina, and I'm like, I know those guys. So that was a pretty wild moment, and that's happened a couple times since. But that was one where we really got to see a company scale alongside with us.
Yeah. So let's say you have a dream tonight. You run into that version of you right before you're going off to college, and you could give that young version of you a piece of advice based on the life you've lived, the wisdom you've gained so far. What advice would you impart on that young version of you? And would that version of you listen?
I'm gonna go super practical with this is make content because the power that holds today, and it's only growing. And so I'm getting back into it, um, making content because in the military, they're like, hey, don't post. That's the safe option, operational security, all that. And so I just kind of got away from the social scene. And from a business perspective, that was not a wise decision. And I enjoy it. So if I had maintained that and built my personal brand all this time, I could have been way further ahead than I am now.
So
But
of all, yeah, no, I get it. Totally get it. So of all of these things that you've done and accomplished up to this point, what are you the proudest of?
I think going through the special operations training for EOD, that was the first thing I think I did in my life that was purely for me to prove to myself that I could do great things. Uh, I gave a talk probably a year ago about second place, and much of the success that I saw early in life, including being a second brother, was, I was that second string. I was second place. I was second this. And that's not a bad thing. You're still a part of the team. You're still contributing. But that was where I moved into, all right, I'm doing this and it's on me. And absolutely, there's the team aspect. But like for you to make it through training, it's you. And that proved to me that I could do anything that I
Yeah.
set my mind to. So.
So let me ask you this. Everyone out there has a perception of you, family, friends, clients, colleagues, everyone around you, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
Gosh, that's a hard question.
Yeah.
The biggest thing that I wanted to be when I put it on my dream board in college was a dad. So the first thing I am is a dad. I am a husband to my wife and the head of our family, and I do that in a Christian way. That's the core of who I am. When it comes to business, I'm someone who is always trying to lead better. I've been in a formal position of leadership for 8 or 9 years now, and that did not start. I was not a good leader in the beginning, and it's been a skill that I've developed over time. But I enjoy working with our team, and I know that I can do so much as that leader to help everybody progress forward. Whether that's helping them through personal issues or helping with very tactical things in the business, giving somebody the confidence that they are able to move forward is that little piece that I can do as a leader every day in some way. Just like I proved to myself that I could do something really, really hard. I can then turn around and help other people realize that how much that they are capable of. And I think that's one of my little ways of giving back. So,
Right on, man. Austin, if anyone wants to hire you, reach out, learn more about what you're doing, any of the good business, where do they go?
uh, our primary business is publicityforgood.com. We have a PR software that is in kind of early stages and is accessible now. So signalraptor.com is that. It's designed around being much more of an accessible PR service and a software, and the technology enables us to provide that at a much lower cost. The last place is LinkedIn is probably my best social in this moment. So Austin Holmes on LinkedIn.
Excellent. Austin, thank you, sir. Thank you for your story. Thank you for your time. Keep doing the wonderful work out there.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you, sir. Take